I strongly believe if the U.S. were to embrace Bitcoin, for example, as a store of value, U.S. Treasuries would lose their reserve asset status in the world, and Bitcoin would replace U.S. Treasuries as global reserve asset. But
Hey guys, welcome back to Everyday Finance. In this video, Greg Foss discuss about Bitcoin. According to Greg Foss firmly feels should the United States accept Bitcoin as a retailer. For instance of worth, the US Treasury would forfeit its status of reserves as assets in the globe, and Bitcoin would take our place. Bonds as a global reserve asset. Nevertheless, the US dollar could continue to be its US, currency status of the global reserve, and so estimating the likelihood of what Greg Foss mean as a probability is a distribution. As you know, a constant distribution of results. Sometimes it's best to think in terms of binary or just two. Greg Foss say, in my opinion, although unlikely, there is a chance that the US can be successful in carrying out the price of Bitcoin. My usual goal when Greg Foss go on record is stating $2 million in current currency, and people are curious about my well-being. Greg Foss won't reveal to you when see you. Greg Foss say I not be able to know that I simply know that it is worth $2 in today's dollars, $1 million in my view. For how long will it take to arrive there without knowing, but Greg Foss not really concerned about it since I understand its worth, and lots of things Greg Foss discuss, so please watch the video to end, and share this video, and subscribe our channel Everyday Finance. Thanks.
I strongly believe if the U.S. were to embrace Bitcoin, for example, as a store of value, U.S. Treasuries would lose their reserve asset status in the world, and Bitcoin would replace U.S. Treasuries as global reserve asset. But the U.S. dollar could maintain its global reserve currency status. And so putting probabilities on that, I mean, as you know, a probability is a distribution, a continuous distribution of outcomes. It's sometimes better to think in sort of binary or just two. I would say the chances are low, but not zero, that the U.S. can succeed in doing this, but it would require tremendous, acceptance at the level of government to do this. It would require the Jason Lowry thesis.
They'd have to kill their ego.
It would require a tremendous amount. They would have to forego the petrodollar. Would likely be a casualty of this, but it's what's needed to maintain quality of life and global accountability. So probability, 100% certain that all fiats will fail. 100% certain that in their path to failure, that debasement is. There's not going to be a period where they magically return to deflationary currency economics. It's there. The currency will inflate, therefore the value will debase, and that is 100% certainty. The thing we were wrestling with is the time frame, and there's an old trading adage: give a target but not a time, or give a target and a time but never give both. And that way, you can say, okay, in the case of my Bitcoin price target, I frequently go on record as saying $2 million in today's dollars, and people want to know when. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you when because I can't possibly know that. I just know that in today's dollars, it's worth $2 million, in my opinion. How long will it take to get there? No clue. But I'm not too panicked about it because I know how much it's worth, and if it's trading at 1/10 or 1/100th of its notional or intrinsic value, damn. Let the good times roll. Let the people that can buy it and benefit from that. So I don't want, I want to be very clear, as I said on stage, I don't want the USA to fail. It's in the best interest of freedom. In my opinion, it's the best interest of capitalism. All the other countries are substantially worse and less free than the United States. But the United States is not perfect, but It's like, I think it was Margaret Thatcher that said it, something along the lines of capitalism is the worst form of democracy except for all other forms, right? So you have to take the good with the bad, or the bad with the good. But I want the USA to succeed, and I think it's absolutely essential that people get educated. They understand, smart people like Jason Lowry and his thesis, and how Bitcoin is actually a force for good to solve the problems that we're facing.
According to Greg Foss, so occasionally you have to learn for yourself. And let's say, all right, Greg Foss, begin with a few of my slogans to ensure the zero is the sole incorrect Bitcoin allotment. Or if you're short, something even worse, you work for a hedge fund manager who is so astute that they will, in summary, the greatest insurance plan and the most unequal upswing transaction Greg Foss ever observed. But please don't try to correct stupid, simply put. A lot of foolish individuals exist, so the sole incorrect allocation to since Bitcoin is zero, you must gain favorable knowledge about Bitcoin, huh? And suppose you accept that exposure, and Greg Foss ultimately persuades you that you must as much as 5% all right. It's hilarious, because after Greg persuades you that you must own 5% and assume you have set aside 5%, it resembles you neglect what transpires in the remaining 95% of your portfolio. All you're thinking about this 5%, whereas you ought to be the in reverse, as if this were your coverage for insurance. This 5% never fear. About it, be concerned about every other you've already had exposure here. But let's imagine we persuade you to reach 5%, and you have the emotional self-control to that a 5% doesn't have you in a panic, and you will receive discipline. Technique. Greg Foss learned this week. Let's back to the Greg Foss interview.
The strategy that I heard this week, and then I elaborated on stage, was you take that exposure decision and you divide it in half, and you pick a so we're going to use 5%. 2.5% you're going to buy immediately, and you're going to hodl. And the other 2.5% you're also going to buy immediately, but you're going to rebalance that 2.5% as a function of the market. So if the market goes up, your 2.5% becomes 3.5%, let's say, but you got to sell it. You got to rebalance it down to 2.5%, which means you're harvesting gains. You're crystallizing gains. You're harvesting profits. But the flip side is your 2.5%. Well, you got unlucky. You invested 5% in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin went down in price. And I shouldn't say unlucky. It's just the way the markets work. Maybe it is lucky because then you realize, well, I can buy more. And this is what the 2.5% rebalancing allows you to do. That 2.5%, if the price of Bitcoin goes down, becomes 2% of your portfolio. Hey, now you're supposed to rebalance, which means get it back up to 2.5%, which means you dollar cost average or whatever to take advantage of lower prices and get your price, your exposure back up to your 2.5%. And I thought that was a pretty interesting allocation, or not allocation, but risk management strategy, and one that I'd never heard of advanced in the traditional asset space, but one that was designed to allow people to actually profit from volatility. Or how about not profit? How about to take advantage of the volatility that is inherent in Bitcoin? So all of these things give me confidence that people are thinking outside the box. You know, what's funny is some of my friends, or my Bitcoin Twitter friends, are 100% exposed to Bitcoin. 100%. And I'm like, dude, I could never get that far either. Like, I'm at about 40. And, you know, there's times when I say, oh, damn, I don't own enough. And then there's times when I'm like, oh, I own too much. But, you know, 40, I've learned to live with 40%. So that's why it's not comical, but why I look back on those 5% days and I'm like, oh, man, you have no idea. Like, if you really get conviction here. So just find a level that allows you to sleep at night. Understand that this is the best asymmetric investment opportunity I've ever seen. Not to say I'm right. The only thing I know I'm right about is that fiat currency will debase, okay? That is a certainty. Manage your risk accordingly. Bitcoin, my opinion, best horse in the race. What certainty am I? High, but not positive. How much certainty is the market giving me? Well, if you have my price target, which I've already mentioned, is actually about $2.5 million in today's dollars, and it's trading for 25,000. That can be interpreted as the market telling me I have about a 1% chance of being right. And I'm like, well, let me tell you, I'm not 100% certain I'm right, but I'm way higher than 1% chance. So continue to buy.
Even if you're wrong, you're right.
Well, here's the crazy thing is I don't want the world to end, but so far nobody's giving me any confidence, or the current world, the Fiat world, no one's giving me any confidence that there's any reason for it to continue. This clown show has gotten even more ridiculous in the last 3 years. I never thought it would get like this. So we need insurance, we need protection.
According to Greg Foss, Bitcoin declined in cost, and Greg Foss shouldn't call it unfortunate. It's just the way that markets operate. Perhaps is fortunate since you realize, well, can purchase more. Which is what the 2 and rebalancing by 0.5% enables you to. The 2.5% is the cost of when Bitcoin declines. 2% of your portfolio. Hello? You should now rebalancing, which implies raising it to 2.5% or your dollar cost average or anything else to benefit from reduced costs and obtain your price. Your exposure returning to your 2.5%, and Greg Foss believed that to be a rather intriguing distribution or not allocation, but a method for risk management and another one. Greg Foss had never heard of sophisticated in the conventional asset domain. Nonetheless, one that was intended to permit individuals to genuinely benefit from volatility, or conversely, how not to profit on the verge of utilizing the intrinsic volatility of Bitcoin. If you learned something from this video, then please like this video and subscribe our channel Everyday Finance, and we will meet in next video. Thanks.